everything makes it into the headlines, but we bring you the full story. Join Uchenna Cyril Anyoke, a renowned media personality and former president of the Nigerian Publishers Association, as he unpacks the real issues behind the news, from politics to public policy, economy to human rights. Nothing is off limits. Expert guest, in-depth conversation, local and global perspective. New episode every week on Facebook and YouTube. Watch now on Freedom Square TV. Follow for updates and behind-the-scenes clips. Beyond the headlines, beyond the news. Listen to part 1 of our conversation with Chief Chekwas Okorie on Beyond the Headlines.
Good morning and welcome to Beyond the Headlines of Freedom Square TV. We are of course reaching you from our Enugu studio. My name is Chekwas. This morning we have been joined by one of Nigeria's most respected political figures. A man whose name is inextricably linked to the struggle for Igbo political identity and the founding fathers of one of Nigeria's most political parties, the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA. We'll take a look at APGA from formation and to what it is today. One of the first and foremost political party in the southeast part of Nigeria. Our guest is a foundation member of Ohaneze Ndibo worldwide, 1976 till date. He is the founder and pioneer national chairman of All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA. He is also the founder and national chairman of the defunct United Progressive Party, UPP. A presidential candidate in 2015 under the platform of UPP. Most recently, is the convener Igbo Agenda Dialogue, IAD 2025. He is the recipient of the Ohaneze Ndibo worldwide traditional title of Okorie Ndibo, which was conferred on him in 2002, and has the title which he cherishes most, which is Ndibo. Viewers, join me to welcome to our studio Chief Chekwas Okorie, which is Ndibo.
Good morning and thank you, viewers.
Well, it's actually a pleasure to have you on Beyond the Headlines. Let's start from the beginning, so to speak. And when they talk about APGA in Igbo land, it is synonymous with Chekwas Okorie. And of course, APGA was founded as a homegrown Igbo political platform. Is that correct?
You're right.
This ideology centered on inclusiveness, social justice, federalism, and equity for marginalized groups held deep on the southeast of Nigeria. While APGA once held symbolic value for Igbos, it has largely shrunk into a regional party in Anambra State. Internal wranglings, leadership tussles, and defections have weakened its national relevance. Chief, when you founded APGA, it wasn't about politics or elections per se. It was about identity. That's right. The identity of your people, the identity of Ndibo. But today, many can argue rightly or wrongly that APGA is now a shadow of itself. How does this make you feel? Does this still represent the ideological views and visions you had when you founded it?
Well, let me start by thanking you immensely for this opportunity. The story of APGA is one that can now be described as a tragic story. But when it started, it was a story of joy, happiness, and immense expectation from Ndibo, home and abroad. We began to think about a political party that is initiated by an Igbo man when I realized in 1995 through 1996. And don't forget, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe died in 1996. It was in 1995 that I realized that no Igbo man had ever founded a political party in Nigeria since 1923, when party politics began in Nigeria. And Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe had the stature and sagacity to join a political party. He was not the founder and dominated it. And Igbo coalesced on those platforms. One of them was the defunct NCNC. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe came back from abroad, then went to Ghana, and from Ghana he returned to Nigeria about 1934, and joined Dr. Herbert Macaulay in Nigerian National Democratic Party, which was the first political party in Nigeria which was founded in 1923. But now Dr. Azikiwe joined. When he came back from Ghana, it was NNDP that transformed or metamorphosed into NCNC, but then Cameroon was still part of us. But later Cameroon left and the acronym still remained NCNC. When Dr. Azikiwe joined, he became the general secretary of that party. And he and Dr. Macaulay led the canvassing and the promotion of the need for independence. And that took them to many parts of Nigeria, especially the north, who did not quite wish to be independent at the time. It was in that process that, in fact, one of those efforts, campaigns, canvassing, trying to convince Nigerians that there was need for independence, that Dr. Macaulay died in 1947. In fact, he died while traveling in the north. And Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the general secretary, became immediately the leader of the NCNC. So Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe that brought the Igbo State Union that was already existing into the NCNC, and of course convinced them on how the party would be of benefit to Igbo. And that was how Igbo coalesced on NCNC. Now take that to the Second Republic. Again, the war had ended by Second Republic. We are now getting into a new civilian dispensation about 1979. Dr. Azikiwe had already said that he was voluntarily retiring from partisanship. So, at the formation of many political parties, about 5 or 6 of them at the time, Igbo people were busy fighting for who would be the running mates of all the parties. None aspired to be presidential candidates. And so Dr. Azikiwe came out of retirement, again voluntarily, because he didn't believe that Igbo people, having led the struggle, of course championed by himself, for Nigeria's independence, will now choose on their own to play the second fiddle. So he came out, he didn't go to form a new party, he joined the NPP, Nigerian People's Party, founded by Alhaji Waziri Ibrahim, a man from one of his ardent followers in the First Republic. He was leader of the Borno Youth Forum in the First Republic. He founded the NPP. As soon as Dr. Azikiwe joined, and of course, Chief Adona Gusanya was already the chairman of NPP at the time he joined. And of course, Dr. Adesanya was also his close ally. Out of respect, Alhaji Waziri Ibrahim said he was not going to struggle for who will be presidential candidate with Dr. Azikiwe. And so he went and founded the GMPP, Great Nigerian People's Party. And so that was how Dr. Azikiwe became the flag bearer. And many people asked him, why not enter the MPN, which was the biggest party, and most Igbo leaders had already joined?
Yes.
That was when I said they asked him, the media asked him. And he said something that really influenced my worldview today. He said it would be better for him to be in a minority party where his voice would be heard and the voice of his people. He didn't say Igbo people, but everybody knew that he could hardly talk about tribe. But you will also know when he's doing things for his people. And he said where his people's voice will also be heard. Instead of being in a majority party, where himself and his people will be absorbed into the system and their voices will not be heard. So that was his own justification for joining the NPP. And Igbo people coalesced on NPP without being prompted. And the NPP swept the whole of the south, what we now call Southeast. So much so that in Ohozara Federal Constituency, in present-day Ebonyi State, the NPP candidate for federal house died just before the election, and there was no time to replace him. Yet in the election, that dead person won the election.
That is just.
That was the extent of Igbo mobilization and coalition. I mean, coalescing on that platform. After that, things seemed to fall apart. And don't forget, as I stated earlier, in the other parties, Igbo people were running mates. Igbo people, Dr. Kweme was running mate to Shagari, Barrister Umadi was running mate, Philip Umadi to Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Dr. Mazi Ikoku was running mate to Malamaminu Kanu, and Zeribe, Dr. B.U. Zeribe was running mate to Laji Waziri Ibrahim. So only Zik. However, at the end of that election, Zik did not win, but MPN led by Shehu Shagari did not win enough seats to form a stable government. So he went into an accord with MPP, and that was how we had Dr. Alex Ekweme as Vice President of Nigeria, and Chief Umezuoke of MPP as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So that combination has never been replicated to this day. So when I looked at all of this, and I said, no, something is wrong. Igbo people, with all that God has given them, have shown no interest. And Zik was already getting old. And I couldn't see another Zik that could join another party formed by other people and out of sheer political sagacity and savvy dominate it. So we need to have our own. So we began the effort to form a party. And it took 3 attempts. The third one, 2 previous ones failed. Let me not bore you with the dates and all that. Okay. But the third one, which was APGA, succeeded and was registered in 2002. Igbo people celebrated it. The President General of Organizer at the time, Justice Ezozobu, was so happy. He brought out a giant bottle of champagne, asked me to remove my shoes, poured half of it on my feet, and made a very emotional statement that if he died that day, he would not know what to tell Dr. Zik, Dr. Okpara, K. Ombadiwe, and all the leaders that his eyes had seen Igbo political renaissance. Everybody was happy. We thought we had arrived. We thought we had come to a point where nobody will sit on a table and discuss Nigerian politics without taking a rightful seat. Ohaneze further celebrated that accomplishment by giving me the title of Obatule Igbo.
That was when you had the title.
That was when I was given the title that same year, in June of that same year. 2002. Unfortunately. And then coming to in terms of the purpose, I mean the mission, the vision, because you also asked.
Yes.
It was only after when I see people say political parties don't have ideology in Nigeria, I just laugh because I don't know how many people who say that have ever read the manifestos of political, especially APGA. Because you know the party's ideology from its manifesto, its social contract with the people. The issue of constitution of parties is except in the objective principles of the constitution. Every other thing is dictated by the Nigerian constitution. But it is the manifesto that marks out a political party. And in that manifesto, we talked about true federalism, we talked about resource control, we talked about citizenship rights, we talked about self-determination. We even talked about the right to secede. Because other countries like Ethiopia, we knew already had in their own constitution provision for secession should they not like what was going on, and all that was needed was a plebiscite. So all of these things we would have pursued, and the fact that that provision is there or was there would have made any government to not to ride roughshods over any section of the country, knowing that they have an option to go their way. So this was something we were trying to develop, was already documented, already registered. Surprisingly, INEC registered it without raising objection. So less than 2 years, sabotage came in. And the issue of that sabotage, we will take all our time here. It's a long, long story, but it is from within and sponsored from outside. And maybe in the course of our conversation, if it surfaces again, I may give you. But I've written a book, though. I've written a book called APGA and the Igbo Question. So some of these things are already there.
You're painting a good picture. The background to the formation of APGA and what really inspired you when you discovered that all the political parties in Nigeria, apart from Zik, who joined the party and became a presidential candidate, that what the Igbo man at that time was comfortable with was being a vice presidential candidate.
That's it, unfortunately.
And then it touched you, and then you founded APGA, and you can see your story about what Ozo did and how the rest of the people. Now, when you look back at your political journey as the founder and pioneer chairman of APGA, what emotions come to your mind now as you watch it? Is it that of pride? Is that of regret? Or both?
I would say both, because I was actually very proud that I have a place in history. Whether anybody likes my face or my name or not, the fact of me founding APGA is already part of our history. It's one position I realized later that you don't have a former founder. Now I'm a former chairman of APGA. There have been former governors, former presidents. But there's no former founder. Olowo remains even in debt, the founder of Action Group, and the other founders, and so I'm part of that class.
Yes, sir.
So that is a source of self-fulfillment for me. But it is a sad thing that what Igbo people celebrated so much, that the Igbo came out almost more than the way they came out in the case of NPP under Zik, under the Modumego Ojukwu as our presidential candidate. And let me also tell you, it's important to mention this. It was a policy of our party, even when the Modumego Ojukwu had not become a member, because he joined us 6 months after the party was already formed. We made a policy that the APGA will zone its presidential ticket to the southeast repeatedly until it was the objective was realized before it could zone out. it was policy of the party, and of course that attracted a lot of envy and anger from the powers that be. But we didn't know that they are going to come and use our own people to damage it. So,
okay, that actually brings me to that conversation, because there's no way we can talk about APGA without talking about that particular event. I don't know whether it was actually that they accused you of antipathy, or they felt you were being too strong, and they eventually replaced you. A move which you correctly said was a betrayal. Well, that removal, whatever happened, began the fall of APGA.
yes.
Actually, began the fall of APGA. Now, would you agree with the words that one, the men who overthrew you were actually anti-you?
Well, it is difficult for me to say that the men that overthrew me, using your words, but it wasn't really, I'll tell you, it wasn't really an overthrow in the true sense.
What was it?
I voluntarily discontinued the litigation in the court in 2012. We were in court over the issue of APGA. From 2004, the problem started till 2012, and I held on to the certificate of APGA, and nobody could take it from me, not by court, not by any person, until 2012, when we felt after 8 years of fighting in court, and the other side was using money from the Anambra State Treasury. I was using my own money to fight. They were hiring the best of lawyers with the state funds from State Treasury. I was also hiring the best of lawyers, because I had the likes of Chief Michael Hamba, I had the likes of Chief Chris Uche and his brother. They were all senior advocates on our side. We were using our own money. So after 8 years, I felt that it's about time to let go. There were many plans for reconciliation. To tell you that it wasn't an overthrow, I was the one that made it possible for P2B to go for a second time in office. And by then, the crisis had already assumed larger than life dimension, because INEC was somersaulting. They will recognize me today, and tomorrow they will recognize the other person. And at the time P2B was going for his second tenure, I was the one recognized by INEC. And so they couldn't, it was difficult for his nomination form to be admitted by INEC. And they had gone to court in Anambra State to obtain an injunction restraining me from nominating anybody to hold the office of to go for governor in Anambra State. So what happened was that the date was coming close, and nobody was qualified to nominate Peter. And so Peter Ikemba, they all went to President Yaradua to intervene, because within 24 hours it will be closing time. Then Mr. Ondoaka, who is the Attorney General, who was Attorney General then, is still alive. Peter is still alive. And then the professor who involved me and they pleaded with me to allow Peter to go. I said, well, there's no way I will not want a sitting governor. In the party I found the only governor not to go for a second tenure. That is, I am not a vindictive person. I have never been.
But there's something you said that I'm still very confused about.
Yes.
You say you are hiring lawyer by yourself.
Yes.
They were using state fund.
Yes.
Who was the governor then?
P2B.
Okay.
He was governor.
He was one.
And Zitume is his kinsman from the same Agolo in Anambra State.
Okay.
I'm from Abia State.
So both combined to bring money.
And then they had the backing of the Modume Bojuku, the one man that was the greatest beneficiary of my blood and sweat. It was not a...
So if we say it was an Anambra conspiracy, nobody will be wrong.
People can interpret it the way they like.
No, that's what it is.
Yeah, people can do that. The way I say people can do that is that my best friends and my greatest benefactors are also from Anambra State.
Yeah, but they were not running the party.
They were not. In fact, as a matter of fact, when I said I used my money to hire out the best lawyers, some of these benefactors supported me quietly from behind. And they are from Anambra State. So it's difficult for me to paint the entire Anambra State.
Okay, let's get it into perspective. The Okorie, the president member, Victor Ume senator, Peter Obi, governor as he then was, where the people
that spearheaded
the court matter. And then when at the most crucial moment, they came crawling.
They came crawling. But I need to tell you this story of crawling. Because again, it's also documented and nobody has ever said, told anything that was not true. It was Professor, the chairman, Professor Iwu, that said that, well, the only way out would be if I allowed the Modume Wojuku, who was not chairman of party, who was not qualified to sign a nomination form by our laws, if I allowed him to sign for Peter, and then I will not make trouble after, because if I went court to say that Peter's nomination was not legitimate and valid, of course it will stand, because the signatures will be presented in court. I looked at it. I didn't found it APGA was not for myself, and I believe that APGA will still live out his promise, and so we didn't need to kill it at that point. I gave only one small condition, that yes, I will allow the Modume Wojuku to sign my column since there's a court order restraining me, but my secretary, our secretary from the north, Barrister Bello Mar, will sign the secretary side since there was no order restraining him, so that it will be seen that the two factions sponsored Peter for a second term. They were glad to accept, because anything different from that, Peter will not have gone for second term. And that's the nomination form is lying with their neck. Anybody with can quote freedom of information, and they will presume they will see the Modume Wojuku and Barrister Beloma signing P2Bs. So Victor, they were sponsoring, never sponsored P2B for either the first election which I sponsored and second election which I also cooperated for him to go. So that is the thing. But as I said, that struggle continued until I voluntarily withdrew. And there's something significant I need to say. Nnamdi Kanu is a person just like football coaches discover players. I discovered him in UK and approved his appointment as of course his colleagues who were part of the formation of UK chapter that when I went there also agreed. I recommended him and I approved it. It's better to put it that way. And I approved his appointment as the chairman of APGA in the UK in 2002. And all of them were Uchenna Mefor, and the rest of them, many of them I have their names offhand now, but they all mentioned in my book. Where they formed the original APGA in UK and Europe. When this happened, they all aligned with me. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was more like a political son to me. He stood by me till 2012 when I had left voluntarily. I returned the certificate of APGA to INEC. Again, became the first Nigerian to return the certificate of INEC to its issuing authority. The certificate of APGA, a political party registered to its issuing authority, so that I will feel free to form another party with the same ambition and mission. And it was then that Nnamdi Kanu felt, and his other followers, that our people were not ready for partisan politics, for party politics, sorry.
Did I think you betrayed them?
No, they were with me till I left.
Okay.
They were with me. In fact, it was in 2011 November that we had the last reception for me in UK, and I was hosted in Nnamdi Kanu's residence, and all the other leaders were there. We made merry the night, and then after that I proceeded to the US. And so it was, I was talking about November. That same November, 26th of that same November, the Modume Wojuku unfortunately passed away in the UK. And 2012, Nnamdi Kanu had become director of Radio Biafra, and I and those in Nigeria had moved on to form the UPB. And it can be said that if APGA was not destroyed by Igbo people, perhaps there would have been no IPOB.
You see, as it would, we know when you speak in general terms by Igbo people, you'll be begging the question.
Well, I have already mentioned those who...
Yes, yes. When you are beginning to say Igbo people, you will be including people like me.
No. Please, I withdraw that.
Okay, so...
I withdraw that. No.
What you said...
By some of my fellow Igbo people, I think that is...
especially those who are members of APGA.
Yes, but people who are not members of APGA also played a role. Because I know somebody, I don't need to go into all of that, who was very close to the president, President Obasanjo, who took Victor to Andioba, and sold some story that got them interested in getting me removed. And
okay,
so they had the support of the presidency.
Yes, I'm going to ask a question, and that has to do with your relationship with Peter Obi. For what you did that led to his going for a second term, did he in any way show respect or reciprocate what you did? Or were you just thrown like a rat?
Under the bus?
Yes.
Well,
what was the relationship after that?
You see, one thing, throughout all the struggle, there was never a time I took our time to call out Peter Obi. Never. And he was also careful. Of all the allegations made against me, he never came out one day to say Chekwas Okorie was guilty of this or that.
But he was the leader of the party, so to speak.
No, when he came back was there. Kemba became de facto leader. If in a political party, you don't have a leader. It's not in the constitution. Okay. But de facto, yes, you can earn it.
Yeah.
So he came back and earned it. But when there was crisis and there were factions, he can only be leader of his own faction. And not narrowly, for a party that has not won a presidential election, the chairman of the party is the leader of the party. But those things didn't really matter to me. So, but today, I can tell you, not even about 5-7 years ago, my mother died. And Peter surprised me with a visit.
That is in his nature?
Yes, he visited me, he supported me then. And some of my friends who are coming from the north told me that it was Peter that provided them bus from the Okorie airport to go to Alai, my hometown. So those things were gestures that I found quite happy with. And after that, we have been having we have never had any cause to quarrel. And just a week ago, or like 2 weeks ago, people would have seen it in the social media. He paid me a courtesy visit in my place at Enugu, at Abuja. And we had very cordial, if you call it, reunion. And he has offered to come back and visit me properly at Enugu.
Is that politics?
No, you see, Peter, he has his own very good sides. I knew the pressure he was under during that period. The threat, the blackmail against him. But of course, if it was me, nobody could blackmail me like that. But everybody has his own way.
What I learned from American politics is that the buck stops on the table. You are governor, the buck stops on your table, and you should be able to take decisions, be able to say, look, this is not good for our party, this is what we should do, and if you say I'm your governor, we should do this. This is the founder of our party. Because from what you just is their friend.
Yes, he's my friend.
I want to do a proper visit now in Enugu. Well, I hope I will be there when you do that proper visit.
Yes, no, don't be a private one, because it is important for our people to know that there is really a new rapprochement, and that there's nothing is wrong anymore in our relationship, and we can work together for the interest of Igbo people.
That reminds me of Zig's most famous quotation: "The permanent friend, the permanent enemy."
I am always guided by that too.
Thank you. Peter became governor of Anambra State on APGA platform in 2006. Is that right?
Well,
After a prolonged legal battle.
Yes,
After a prolonged legal battle. Yes, his frugality and reforms actually boosted APGA's credibility. He was quite a frugal governor. Many say he was not wasteful, but some say he was miserly. It depends on which one you are. In 2014, Obi defected to PDP. And this contradicted a video that has gone viral. I think Ojukwu was there when he said, look, you don't need to leave a party to achieve your objective. And he made what has gone viral, that any day he leaves Africa, he will quit politics. Well, being a politician, you could say in Nigeria, nothing is sacrosanct. But sometimes it's good to hold a man by his words. He left not only for PD, but he eventually did what? Left for Labour and became a presidential candidate in 2023. And of course, many people begin to talk about the issue of loyalty and the ideological consistency. You had said at the beginning that APGA was an ideological party. And so with this knowledge, how do you process the irony of Peter to be being APGA's strongest product, yet building the presidential ambition outside APGA?
Well, I will speak to that from the position of somebody who has some information that
may not be public
domain. Not be out there in the public domain. Again, by 2014, the APGA crisis was almost 10 years old. Because the APGA crisis started in 2004, barely 2 years after it was formed. So I was, he had already finished his second tenure in 2013. But he told me, Peter, after we had actually a reconciliation, like I said earlier, after visiting, honoring me with his presence at my mother's funeral. So we met at Abuja, place at Abuja. And he told me the story of how he left APGA. And again, it was another subject, product of blackmail. Peter was dragged to a bishop, a Catholic bishop, by Governor Biano and Peter Bigdume, the people he met. They went to the bishop at Oka and told the bishop that the problem they were having in APGA was Peter. This is a story told to me by Peter, Governor Peter Obi. That's the only way they will move forward if Peter Obi left APGA for them. And this bishop was startled that Peter Obi was being accused of being the problem of APGA at the time he had left. Because when he left, I believe somehow even in Anambra State, he still had strong followers. So they felt that in the presence of his followers, with Peter looming large at the background, was an impediment to whatever agenda they had in mind. So Peter said to me, and I want to be quoted, that he promised before this bishop that if it was his presence that would make APGA not to grow, he was ready to leave. And it was on that note that he left. Immediately he left, the same Victor and Willie Obiano sponsored programs and the AIT award that one and on other platforms they did, recalling when Peter had said that he would never...
Okay, that was why it went viral.
Yes, they went on television to recall it. The same people that asked him to leave. Peter was a victim of immense and vicious propaganda and blackmail. And that is much I can tell about that incident. If people looking at that from outside will say, oh, Peter just walked out on the party that made him. This is his story, but Peter chooses the story to tell publicly and the one not to tell. But I would be unfair that he told me this, and I will not bring up this to defend. And he's trying to put a perspective to the circumstance that made him to leave APGA.
This is, of course, I've been a follower of this viral video.
Yes.
And it's been said everywhere, Peter never uttered a word.
You can imagine for a television station of the size of any television station at all, that's a sponsored program.
Yeah.
It costs money. So who spent that money? Who funded these AIT and other platforms that now continue to relay when Peter said they will never...
Without knowing the circumstance.
Without knowing the circumstance. That is that. So when he left, at that young age, he left APGA. Who was expecting him to retire? If the intention was for him to retire, they got it wrong. So he went to PDP where he found comfort and rose quickly in PDP. He also received his own...
Then he's still not away from PDP.
No, yes. Let me tell you, the problem of Peter is the problem of the man. Think of Dr. Alex Ekweme and his huge profile. Dr. Ekweme was promised by the North that having served President Segun Shagari so diligently and obediently and loyally, that they were going to support him to become the presidential candidate of a PDP. That story was brought to us in Enugu. We met the organizer and leaders of people I met. I would say, well, this type was what was going to make Dr. Alex Ekweme to become president and Igbo. Let everybody vote for that party. And the PDP said at the time, the leadership, that for you to qualify to stand the election, you must win your ward. And they make sure that the electoral timetable, because they were influencing everything, allowed the presidential election to take place, primaries, to take place first before the primaries for governorship and state assembly.
So Zik cleared the place?
No, that Zik was not running at the time.
Yes.
This is PDP.
PDP.
So because of this sentiment that people want to see Dr. Ekweme as presidential candidate, the PDP swept everywhere in Igbo land. Everywhere, the whole of the state assembly in the 5 states, House of Rep in the 5 states, senators in the 5 states, and governors in the 5 states. And how did they pay Igbo people back? They are now President General Obasanjo, as he was then, who had lost his polling unit and the ward, not to talk of Southwest. Southwest was entirely AG, was the one that they now made their candidate. I was with Ikemba at APP. The same day they had that convention at Jos, we had our own in Kaduna that same day. And by some maneuvering, Dr. Boneonu was said to have won our nomination. And we felt, well, we could make do with that. And what did they do? Within 25 hours, the party leadership, aided by the military class, who are running the show at the time, pushed Dr. Boneonu aside and went into a very unprecedented alliance between AD and APP. AD had 9 governors, APP had 9 governors, PDP had 6. Sorry, AD had 6, APP had 9. But they gave the presidential ticket to a party with a junior party. Okay. That is Olufalaye. Only just to make sure that both Olufalaye and Olusegun Obasanjo came from the same side. So, if using that alone, if an Igbo man does not go to a party that has zoned it to him, He will never stand the chance of running for president in this country. This is that is the tragedy of the structure, geopolitical structure we are running in Nigeria today, that makes so many of us continue to talk about restructuring. So if P2B had remained in PDP, he wouldn't see, in fact, he wouldn't even come third or fourth. But the moment he went to Labour, he took the party and he took Nigeria by storm. And now every woman, most people were proud of who their son had become.
Yes.
So he had moved away from a local champion to be playing in the National Premier League of politics.
Okay, that would actually bring us to the 2027 presidential bid, because what is in the lips of everybody, governance has been thrown to the back door, virtually at the national and even at the states. Everything now is about political maneuvering, alignment, realignment. Of course, you see what's happening in the PDP, you see what's happening in Labour. Of course, ADC is almost dead on arrival. But one thing stands clear. Mr. P2B is determined and has said he's running for 2027 presidential bid. And he has locally said to run for a single term. And many Igbo people, including his own governor, who had berated him for saying that. With what you know about P2B, do you think that one-term bid is only a bid, or do you think it is genuine?
I see that pledge as political. Because I've said it before, I want to repeat it here, that nobody goes to run for president that does it just walking out of his bedroom and he becomes a candidate and becomes a winner. You must have people supporting you, you must have people voting for you to win, and all of those people have the expectation that you do well as a president. And God help him to become president, and God help him to do very well in his first tenure. Nigerians will not forgive him to say, I said I will run for one tenure. They will tell him, look, he must continue this job and improve Nigeria. Don't take us back to Egypt. You know, so there'll be pressure that will make him to review that position. And I don't think anybody who is a serious politician will take that as given. He's not the only one that said so. The former Vice President, Elijah Tukabak, has said the same. But somehow people tend to concentrate more on what people say.
Ameti also said so.
Yes, they will say this is our political talk. But if you are there and you have not done well, look at the president we have now. He's, even before he's gone half his tenure, many people are wishing that either that Buhari had stayed longer or that Jonathan wouldn't have been allowed to lose, even under 3 years. So you can imagine if he said that he will do 4 years, then even the 4 years will look like eternity. so these things are not really the issue. The issue is win the president and do what you have promised that you will do. Allow the people to decide whether you continue or not continue.
Okay, P2B is determined to run for the presidency in 2027. Have you found any other Igbo person you consider viable to run for this issue, to run for this election, assuming without considering that Peter does not pick a ticket? Are there one or two other Igbo people you consider worthy presidential hopefuls?
Well, the way I put it, maybe they are looking somewhere I have not seen. Nobody knows who may might tomorrow. They say in politics 24 hours is too long. But so far I have not seen anybody. If Rotimi Amechi had not announced his Igbo identity, probably he will also be counted as one because he's already out there saying he was going to run. But that is really not my headache now. My headache is how to get the Igbo people be prepared for the election. And when the parties, none of the parties, including the APC, has even done a convention based on INEC guideline and candidates emerge. Until the candidates emerge, maybe that kind of question may come again. But for now, I personally, and I believe I speak for many Igbo people, would have something more urgent, because Igbo people say you have to secure the floor before you look for the part of the floor to lay your mat. So we have the floor that is not available. We must secure it, and that is where my new project and probably last project. Let me even use the opportunity to make it clear.
Well, I'm actually going to come to this new agenda.
Okay.
Because
it is important I say this because
okay, go ahead.
The new agenda.
Okay.
I want to seize this opportunity. I don't think I've actually said it in any platform before now. Like I say it now, I mean it. I don't say what I don't mean, and I'm going to say it to the end of time. My part in partisanship is over. I have voluntarily discontinued partisanship in order to be in a position to play this new role that God has asked me to play for the remainder of my life.
Okay, and that new role, I think, and many people may be hearing for the first time, is what you have termed the Igbo Agenda Dialogue 2025.
Yes.
So, now this is the opportunity also to tell our viewers, those who are watching us, what the Igbo Agenda Dialogue, what it stands for.
Very good.
And where you want to take it to.
Very good. Igbo Agenda Dialogue is a new project that I consulted with a few persons, just a handful of persons, and agreed that is worth pursuing. And let me give you a little background to it. This is 55 years since the Biafra-Nigeria war ended. The Igbo people have never had a single political dialogue in 55 years. Just like it took nearly 80 years before we even had a party that was founded. In 55 years, there have been political summits held in the South-South, a couple of them in the Southwest. Of course, the North doesn't even need a political dialogue because they have continuously held the power to themselves and they have used it the way they liked. So they never felt threatened. If they are going to have political dialogue, maybe it is after any moment from now, because they are now at the receiving end. The Middle Belt have had their own. I've even attended one of their own where I was invited to give a message, what is it called? Where I was invited to give Google message. I was the only one that was invited to do so in a big gathering that involved the likes of governors and so many, practically all the governors from the Middle Belt. Their sons like General Christopher Musa, the Chief of Defense Staff, their sons like the IGF, and so on. They were all there at the conference center at Abuja. So, but people have never had anything close to a political dialogue in 55 years. I mean, a political summit, sorry. So we decided not only that we are going to have that summit, but we are going to have a body that is called Igbo Agenda Dialogue that will now host that political summit in Enugu. It has to be in Enugu. But we have to start at Abuja, where majority of our political leaders are residents. And it went very well. We will do a second one where critical committees will be set up. Then we'll come back to Enugu. And then we'll set up a very powerful committee of Igbo eggheads in all sectors, in intelligentsia, in politics, in judiciary, and so on, that will put heads together including those who are in the markets, because
Yes, commerce.
Yeah, the commerce, our men and women and youths will select the best of them to sit together and give us an Igbo charter. We don't have an Igbo charter. Yet we need Igbo charter more than anybody else. But there is the charter of the Southwest, charter of the Niger Delta, and so on. So that Igbo charter will be presented at the summit at Enugu, and it will be like the Chinese Red Book, Igbo. And moreover, something so pleasing is going on. The indigenous Igbo of Delta, Edo, Kogi, Benue, Rivers, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, and then of course the 5 Southeast states are beginning to retrace and reaffirm their Igbo identity. And so we are bringing all of them into all of this. And you know the way Igbo people do their thing. It took the Eastern Nigerian Consultative Assembly to give mandate to the Modunwego Ojukwu at the time to declare Biafra before everybody keyed into it.
Yes.
So if we want to have a charter that everybody will key into, Igbo people of these categories will assemble and adopt it, and it will be our document from that date. And IAD is being organized in the nature of the Jewish League.
How does it work?
It will be a grid. It will be an Igbo national grid, where all the organizations, town unions, professional bodies, and even everybody will key into that grid, just like you have your power grid in Nigeria. So all the organizations will remain. The market associations will remain. The town unions will remain. The traditional ruling institution will remain. Nobody is tampering with them. But we now have the grid that will be managed by the initiators. And once you decode that grid, things will start to happen. And what is that? We will make it known to every Igbo person of voting age that the greatest weapon he has for his liberation, for his self-determination, for his liberty is the voter's card. For our people, for our young people who go about saying, we want referendum to do this or to do that, many of them don't know that you cannot participate in a referendum if you don't have a voter's card. Because that is what qualifies you to even participate. Midwestern states wouldn't have been formed, both for the coalition between NCNC and MPC. The AD led by Awolowo vehemently opposed it, but there was a plebiscite. And in that plebiscite, which is another form of referendum, the majority of the people voted that they wanted a Midwestern state. So you can't be saying you want this, you want that, even the voter's card you don't have. So this is the message you are taking to the grassroots, to the doorsteps, one or some else. Yeah. It will have lived, that's why I say it will be in form of that grade. It will have lived all of us who have founded it, because our children are going to benefit from it, and our children's children. And nothing will be the same again. Let me tell you why I'm excited about it.
Tell me.
People have the highest population in Nigeria. Even if you put the Hausa and Fulani together, and it's easy to see. I've proved it everywhere. I have debated this. First, there is no state in Nigeria that Igbo people don't come second to the indigenous population. All the states.
That's correct.
FCT, you can imagine what happened in the last election. It will be 158% of the votes there, leaving 42% for Tinubu and Atiku to grant share. And that is why none of them made 25%, the threshold. So then in the Southeast itself, we are 99.9% of the population. When you put all of this together, why do we be asking anybody for any? The issue of lamentation is over. Because you see, when you have population and have geographical spread, you are the only one holding yourself back from being a major factor in the power equation of the country.
Chief, I will agree with you to an extent, the extent that yes, Ndi Igbo are everywhere. But do they have this unity you are talking about? Because one thing is to have the population. The other is to ensure that population is united to the point of having a focus to be able to deliver a particular good.
If they had the unity, there will be no need for IAD. That unity is not there. That is the unity we are working on. Do you know that in 2000, the election that was rigged against Ikemba before the one that was rigged against Peter, Igbo people have their one Suleja federal constituency without a candidate. It's on record. Because then it was the party that was voted for. So the people in Suleja, that's part of Niger State, federal constituency didn't ask who was the candidate. They voted for the symbol, cock. In Ojo federal constituency in Lagos, Igbo won federal house without the candidate. In Omu-Odofin federal constituency, Igbo won that seat without a candidate. That is the extent that once you get Igbo activated the way we are trying to plan it, it becomes a movement.
My worry, and maybe the worry of all those who are watching us, is that beautiful idea, politicians. How will you get the Igbo politicians who will now see it again as the Chekwas Okorie come back? I want to pull you down, pull this idea down.
There's nobody to pull down now. I am not heading any political party. I'm not going to head any association that is already existing. I am a foundation member of Ohaneze, but this is not interfering or clashing with Ohaneze core functions as a socio-cultural organization. If any person wanting to pull me down, you pulling me down from what to what? I am not, this is not, you know, don't need to go to INEC to go and bring me down. You are not going to court to bring me down, except if you go after my life and God allows you. So this is, I'm not too afraid. Yes, that's, no, those who will be way more afraid now are not even Igbo people. Igbo people are praying that this should work. And if you know the amount of prayers I receive on daily basis, on my phone, on the other sources, you will only say, God, let the voice of men be the voice of God.
Second worry, and after this we'll just take a short break. In Nigeria, and virtually in most places, our governors are like emperors. And let me take the segment called traditional rulers that may want to key into this vision. They are sustained, paid, recognized, removed by the governors. And so if the governors are not in tandem, if they don't see eye to eye, which really I would doubt, given their nature now, how would you realize this ambition?
Let me tell you that the governors will be in tandem. In that summit, all the governors, present and past, will be part of it. He said, let me tell you why they will be part of it. Let me use again an example, an empirical example. In 2023, Peter Obi won 89.6% of the total votes cast in the Southeast. That is a brilliant performance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Performance. Now go to the record and check what that represented. It was 1.8 million votes. Very, very appalling, very, very painful. That 89.6% of votes cast in the Southeast amounted to only 1.8 million votes. But in 2011, the same Southeast, which has a lesser number of registered voters as a data compared to the present time, gave President Jonathan over 7 million votes.
What a contradiction.
So, but because of the way our leaders have managed the politics of our area and then at the nation, and even INEC that tends to manipulate the results, our people have just laid back. It is that sleeping giant that we want to wake up again. Can you imagine if we had given Peter Obi 5 million votes, still 2 million less than what we gave to Jonathan? Who will be fighting about his winning, having won the last election.
So there was apathy.
Not just apathy. Apathy is even making it mild. The people have simply surrendered. And they are sleeping. That is why I say a sleeping giant needs to be woken up again. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, and I thank God that we have some months from January when we will have the summit to February, March when the election will take place in 2027.
Okay.
So everybody's hand will be on deck. I can only provide whatever level of leadership and provide my voice as I have granted me the opportunity to share my thoughts with those who are watching. But there's a limit to what I can do, so our people have to embrace it. I have made up my mind that once after the summit, I will, God willing, I will go around to meet Igbo people. Yes, there is Zoom, there are many ways of communication, but I will physically go to where Igbo people live, both starting with Nigeria. I've done Nigeria 15 times in my lifetime, this country. I have been to a place in Northern Guzo in 2000 when I was invited as the special guest of honor to Igbo Day celebration of that year. I came in contact with the people in Northern Guzo who had lived there 400 years by that year 2000.
Okay.
So I'm going all over the world again.